I've hunted alone for most of my adult life. Archery, mostly. Sometimes rifle. I've tracked elk through snow, sat tree blind for 12 hours without moving, gutted game with numb fingers in the pre-dawn cold. It's a solitary thing, hunting. It requires stillness, focus, and a kind of quiet most people can't stand. This trip wasn't supposed to be any different. Late March, right between the freeze and the thaw. A perfect window. Snow still on the ground, but thinning. Tracks stay crisp. Movements easier. Most folks are still waiting for spring to warm up the world, but the smart ones know this is when the big bulls move low. I'd been planning it for months. Northwest Montana. Remote ridge trail just off the Kootenai. Forest Service map showed a cluster of old game trails intersecting near a creek bend, about 8 miles in. No formal campgrounds. No public parking. Just raw terrain and silence. Exactly what I wanted. I packed light. Lever action .308, single-man tent, enough dry food and instant coffee to last 4 days. No cell coverage out there, obviously, but I had my emergency beacon, satellite tracker, and topographic printouts. My gear was good. My prep was tight. I told no one exactly where I'd be. Not out of carelessness. Just habit. I've always been like that, keep your business quiet, move in shadows, trust the forest more than people. Never had reason to think that might be dangerous. I parked along a decommissioned fire road, threw my pack on, and started the slow hike up. It was colder than forecasted, wind coming down from the ridgeline with a bite that cut through my gloves, but I liked that. The cold keeps you sharp. Keeps the forest quiet. 3 hours in, I hit the game trail. Fresh sign. Elk, definitely. Maybe 2, based on the hoof spread and stagger. I dropped into low gear, eyes scanning for scat, hair, broken branches. This is the part most folks don't understand, it's not just tracking. It's reading. Interpreting. Learning the story of an animal's movement through space. These tracks were perfect. Like textbook perfect. Hooves deep, clean. No scuff. No hesitation. Spacing showed strong, steady pace. Confident. I smiled. This was going to be a good hunt. By mid-afternoon, I reached the creek bend marked on the map. The snow thinned out there, southern exposure, and I could hear water trickling just under the ice. No recent crossings, but the elk had passed through the narrow ravine just west of the bend. I pitched my tent near a thicket of birch, out of windline but within sight of the creek. Firewood was dry, broken clean. I ate jerky and made coffee. Watched the sun lean west. Then I heard it. A single crack. Not thunder. Not a branch falling. A footstep. Far off. Behind me. I froze, listening. But it didn't come again. Just whined through the trees. I chalked it up to a squirrel, or maybe my nerves. First night alone always does that, plays games with your senses. I laughed it off. Finished my coffee. Settled in. But I'll tell you now. That first sound. It wasn't the forest. And I wasn't alone.
By first light, I was already moving. There was a thin crust of frost over the tent, brittle enough to break with a whisper. I packed up quick, ate a granola bar on the go. No fire, just a long breath of cold air and the weight of the rifle in my hands. I was excited. Focused. And still thinking like a hunter. The elk tracks picked up west of the creek, near the mouth of a gully. Clean again. Same depth. Same spacing. Too clean. I didn't notice it at first. I was too caught up in the rhythm, scan, step, scan again. But about half an hour in, something started nagging me. A pressure behind the eyes. like an itch I couldn't scratch. The trail had no breaks. No scat. No bedding areas. No signs of hesitation. The elk hadn't stopped once. Not to graze. Not to rest. It had just walked. In a perfectly straight line. For over a mile. That doesn't happen. Not in terrain like this. I paused. Squatted low, ran my glove along the edge of a hoofprint. Still sharp. Not windblown. And the snow inside hadn't melted or glazed. Which meant they weren't old. I stood slowly. And I looked behind me. My own prints. Just one set. Mine. Exactly where I'd stepped. But something about them felt off. I couldn't place it right away. Then it hit me. They were too exact. Like someone had traced them. Copied them. No stagger. No drag. Just a perfect twin trail behind me. My heart skipped. I scanned the tree line. Nothing moved. No wind. No birds. Just stillness. And then, very faint, behind me. A low exhale. Like someone letting out breath behind cupped hands. I spun, rifle raised. Empty woods. No sound. No echo. I stood there for a full minute. Breathing hard. Every nerve on edge. Nothing came. Eventually, I convinced myself it was a trick of the wind. That maybe I'd startled a deer. I even said it out loud. Deer. Like naming it made it real. But something had changed after that. I followed the elk trail for another hour. And it kept going. Still no breaks. Still no mistakes. It was like walking a path laid down just for me. At some point I noticed my breath wasn't fogging right. Not the way it should in that cold. It just hung there. Too still. Like the air didn't want to move. I took a break near a ridge. Sat on a log. Drank water I didn't want. And then I saw it. A tree about 20 feet away. With a fresh mark on the bark. A long, smooth scrape. Diagonal. 4 inches wide. Pale, fresh wood exposed. I didn't make that. I hadn't passed that tree yet. And there were no boot prints near it. None. That was the first time I felt it fully, the truth, cold and sharp. I wasn't following anything. I was being led. I stayed on that log for too long. Long enough that the cold reached under my jacket and settled in my bones. I wasn't even thinking about the elk anymore. My fingers tapped against the rifle's stock. My eyes drifted from tree to tree, not really seeing. I was trying to decide something without knowing the question. Eventually, I stood up. The trail still waited. That same line of hoofprints, cutting through the snow with perfect confidence. And my own steps behind me, now softened a little by wind, but still neat, deliberate. Like someone was walking exactly where I'd been. Or I was walking where someone wanted me to. It wasn't just the tracks now. The forest had changed. Subtly, yes. But enough. The light felt flatter. The snow a little too smooth. My depth perception began to feel unreliable. I'd spot a tree 30 yards out, but when I reached it, it was somehow off to my left. Landmarks I was sure I'd noted earlier, weren't there. And something else was happening too. I was doubling back. I was sure of it. Even though my GPS still showed forward movement, my eyes disagreed. There was a broken stump I'd passed 2 hours earlier, same angle, same shape. The wind had shifted, too. It was coming from the wrong direction now. Pushing scent and sound where it didn't belong. I stopped and tried to calm myself. Focus. I told myself I'd gone in circles. It happens. You lose focus, terrain loops, your mind bends with the landscape. But then I saw the scratch. Same tree. Same mark. The bark had darkened slightly with air exposure, but it was the exact same diagonal slice I'd seen earlier. There were no other prints. No new animal signs. Nothing but my trail. And the one ahead of me. I turned and followed it anyway. Why? I don't know. Some part of me was still convinced there was a real animal out there. That I was just rattled. Maybe I'd spooked myself. Maybe I was just tired. Then I found the stone. Just a small one. Flat. Black. Sitting perfectly in the center of the trail. I bent to pick it up and froze. My boot prints led around it. Carefully. Deliberately. Like I'd avoided it. But I hadn't seen it before. I'd never walked this path. Not this exact line. And yet, I'd already walked around it. That's when the idea hit me. Whatever was out here with me wasn't just following. It was predicting. Watching. Studying. Learning how I moved. And I'd been walking deeper into its pattern the whole time. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even set up the tent. I stayed tucked between two rocks under a low pine, rifle across my chest, pack clutched like a shield. I didn't build a fire. Didn't want light. Just watched the trees and listened to a forest that had gone too still to be natural. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard footsteps. Not loud. Not running. Just steady. Measured. Sometimes they were behind me. Sometimes ahead. Always far enough to doubt. Never close enough to catch. I told myself I'd hike out at first light. That I'd ditch the trail, cut east, use the sun and topography to move out of the basin and back to the truck. I had everything I needed. I was prepared. I could be gone by early evening. But when morning came, the prints were back. Mine. Not from where I'd camped. Not looping from my last known point. They were already on the trail. Waiting. In front of me. Two parallel lines, same stride as mine. Same boot model. Even the same shallow heel drag I'd picked up from an old sprain. It was like something had started ahead of me this time. I followed them. I don't know why. I think some part of me had given up pretending I was hunting anything at all. I was just reacting. Reacting to a path that wouldn't let me deviate. Reacting to a silence that seemed to stretch when I slowed down. About 3 miles in, I reached an old clearing. I remembered it from the topo map, once an old logging pocket decades back. Now just a wide-open bowl, ringed with dead pines. And there, in the center, was a pile of stones. 5 feet tall. 2 even. Balanced. On top, stuck into a crack near the center, was a single arrow. Carbon shaft. Red fletching. Mine. Same make and color as the ones in my pack. I hadn't lost any. I hadn't fired a shot. I approached slowly. Hands cold. Rifle low. The pile wasn't just rocks. It was bones too. Animal, mostly. But some too long. Too straight. I reached for the arrow. And behind me, about 30 feet off, I heard it. My voice. Clear. Measured. Just 3 words. I see you. I didn't turn around right away. You'd think that'd be instinct. The moment you hear a voice behind you, especially your own, you spin, you raise the rifle, you confront. But I didn't. I just stood there, staring at that pile of stone and bone, the shaft of my arrow still trembling faintly in the wind. I remember thinking, if I turn, I won't come back the same. But eventually, I did. There was nothing there. Just the clearing. Just the silence. But the trail I'd followed? Gone. No prints behind me. Not mine. Not the elk's. Not the ones that had been mimicking me for miles. Just clean snow. Untouched. Like I'd never arrived. I started walking. Not toward anything in particular, just away. My steps felt wrong. Not physically, but in timing. Like I was slightly offbeat from the rhythm of the place. A half second behind something unseen. Then I started noticing the trees. They were closer now. The spaces between them tightening. Not gradually. Not naturally. Just, suddenly. Like a stage reset between acts. I'd blink, and the horizon would shift. I'd pass one set of rocks, then again 5 minutes later, same shape, same moss, same cracked face like a frozen scream. I stopped to check my GPS. No signal. Frozen. Tried my compass. The needle spun. Then locked. Straight down. I don't know how long I wandered. My limbs started to ache, but not from exertion, from repetition. Like I'd walked the same stretch of woods so many times my muscles started to remember it before I did. And then I saw the camp. Mine. Exactly as I'd left it 2 days earlier. Except the fire pit was warm. Still smoking. And someone had made coffee. There was a steaming cup sitting on the log I'd used. Next to it, stabbed into the ground, was a second arrow. Mine again. But the fletching was soaked. Blood, maybe. Or something darker. I didn't touch it. Didn't go near the tent. I backed away, retraced steps I hadn't taken, moved sideways through a world that no longer responded the way it should. It was like the forest had curled in on itself. And I was now inside the fold. No longer walking toward a destination. But orbiting something that had chosen to stay still. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up on cold ground, cheek pressed against snow. My rifle was across my chest, untouched. My pack was open. I didn't remember unzipping it. Inside, one of my gloves was missing. Just one. I stood slowly, bones stiff, brain cloudy. A wind moved through the trees, not hard, but cold in a way that felt personal. Not like weather. Like breath. There were no tracks around me. No sign I'd moved in the night. Just a shallow impression where I'd laid, and a small circle around it, like something had paced there, not stepping close, but staying near. Watching. I knew what it meant. It was giving me time. Time to understand. That terrified me more than if it had tried to take me in my sleep. This wasn't instinct or savagery. This was patient. This was strategic. Whatever was in those woods had no need to rush. It wanted recognition. I started moving east, not following a trail, just walking. No compass, no plan. I followed the slope of the land, hoping gravity would guide me toward some semblance of escape. And then I heard it again. Not the voice. The whistle. Just 3 notes. Drawn slow. Repeated once. A tune I'd never heard but knew I'd remember until I died. I didn't run. Running makes noise. Running invites pursuit. But I moved fast. Diagonal across the ridge line, ducking through pine and birch, cutting between the thicker clusters of growth. I started to get that sensation again, like my path wasn't mine. Like my boots weren't breaking snow, but stepping in shadows that had just finished becoming prints. That's when I saw it. Standing where I should have been. 40 yards off. Still. Tall. Wearing my jacket. I couldn't see its face. The trees covered most of the silhouette. But the posture was mine. The stance. Even the slight tilt of the head I do when I listen hard for wind. It didn't move. Didn't react. Just watched. Then, slowly, it raised one hand. And mimicked racking around in a rifle. I didn't have time to aim. I didn't think. I just turned and ran. I didn't stop until the sky bled gray and my legs gave out. I collapsed under a deadfall, chest heaving. I had crossed some invisible threshold. Not into a different world, but into a truth I hadn't wanted to name. I was no longer being tracked. I was being studied. And I was very close to failing the test. I made a plan. Or maybe it was just desperation disguised as logic. Either way, I told myself I could still get out. That I could move fast enough, smart enough. Avoid the things watching, mimicking, breathing just beyond the tree line. I'd follow the ridge until I hit the western drainage. That would lead me to the old logging road, and from there, if the forest hadn't shifted everything again, I could reach my truck. I didn't bother trying to mask my trail anymore. Whatever this thing was, it didn't follow tracks. It followed decisions. About an hour into my escape, I passed a stretch of pine with shallow snow. There, clear as sunlight, were boot prints. Not mine this time. They were ahead of me. Leading the exact direction I was heading. Same depth. Same pattern. Same leg drag. It had made the next move before I did. Still, I followed. What choice did I have? The forest was changing again. Trees seemed to lean inward. Sound didn't echo right. I called out once, just to hear something human. My voice didn't come back. It didn't bounce. It just vanished. Then I reached the split tree. I knew it. Knew it too well. I'd marked it with my knife my first night out. A deep X, right in the knot near the base. Except now. There were 3 XS. Fresh. One under the other. The bark still curled from the last cut. And beside the trunk, a glove. My glove. The one I'd lost. Folded. Placed on a flat stone. Like an offering. I took a step back and felt snow give under my heel. Turned. More prints. Mine, again. Coming from the other direction. Leading toward me. I was meeting myself. Not metaphorically. Not emotionally. Physically. 2 mirrored paths. Both mine. Converging. The forest wasn't trapping me. It was folding me. Closing in like paper. Wrapping my route in on itself until I had nowhere else to go. And then, ahead. I saw the edge of the woods. Clearing. Light. Something real. I ran. Branches tore at my sleeves. Snow spilled into my boots. I didn't care. I broke through the tree line. And stumbled onto gravel. The road. The one I'd driven in on 4 days earlier. My truck was there. Exactly where I'd left it. Exactly the same. Except for one thing. Footprints. Coming out of the woods. To the driver's side door. But none leading in. I didn't check the cab. Didn't look under the chassis. Didn't scan the tree line. I just got in. My hands shook so badly I could barely get the keys into the ignition. When the engine turned over, it sounded wrong, like it hesitated before starting. Like it decided to cooperate. I drove. Didn't stop. Didn't speak. Just followed the winding forest road back toward a world that, at that moment, felt more imaginary than anything I'd just left. I didn't see another car for hours. No rangers. No hikers. No roadside campers. Just miles of winding asphalt and that creeping feeling in my spine, like I hadn't left something behind. But brought it with me. By the time I hit cell range, it was already dark. I pulled off at a gas station I'd used before, tried to steady my hands long enough to fill the tank. The clerk asked if I was okay. Said I looked pale. I lied. Said I'd had a close call with a cougar. Lost my gear. Nothing serious. He gave me a weird look, but didn't press. Before I left, I checked the back seat. Nothing. Just my pack. I kept driving. Back home, the woods faded behind me, but the silence didn't. It clung to the edges of my day. I'd wake at 3:17 a.m. exactly. Every night. No sound, no dreams. Just a sudden, sharp knowing that something was listening. I stopped hunting. Stopped hiking alone. Eventually, I moved. Different town. More people. Less forest. Didn't help. 2 months ago, I found boot prints in my backyard. Same tread as mine. Even the slight worn edge on the heel. They circled the shed. Then vanished. Last week, I got a package. No return address. Inside, one glove. Mine. The one I lost in the woods. I burned it. Didn't matter. Last night, I woke up to 3 notes. Whistled. Not loud. Not outside. Inside. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, frozen in the kind of fear that doesn't scream, it waits. And I understood something I'd been denying this whole time. I didn't escape. I was released. Not because I beat it. Not because it lost interest. But because it needed someone to carry the story. To pass it on. To mark the trail for the next one.